Hey everyone, it's Carly. I'm thrilled to be back and to be sharing with you one of my latest cards using MFT's Bubbly Butterflies. So I've got all the bubbly butterflies loaded up in my Misty and I'm planning to watercolor. So I'm going to stamp onto some smooth watercolor paper and I'm going to emboss. So I'm going to go over that panel with a powder tool to make sure embossing powder only sticks where I want it to. Then I'm going to ink up the butterflies in black and emboss it in clear. Now I find that embossing helps me with watercolor because it keeps all of that watery paint within the lines. And I like to stamp in black and emboss in clear instead of using black powder because clear powder, if you have a little stray piece, it doesn't really show. Black powder, however, if you have a stray piece of it somewhere, it's going to make a mess. So I just find it's easier to use clear powder with black ink. By the way, I'm using the MFT Extreme Black ink pad. I love this ink pad for pretty much everything and it's great for embossing. And like I said, I stamped those in black, put clear powder on, and now I'm heat setting. Now, for the design I'm planning for my card, I'm not exactly sure how many butterflies I'm going to need. So I'm going to repeat this until I have a couple more panels of butterflies, just so that I don't have to make any more right in the middle of my card design. Nothing worse than having to stamp again after you thought you were done stamping and die cutting. And speaking of die cutting, did you know that you should be wearing safety goggles when you cut these apart, guys? Yeah, I'm not doing that either. But I do have a little hack that I use to protect my eyes. So when I'm cutting them apart and I need to cut off the little metal pieces, I take some scrap low-tack tape that I've saved from masking or whatever. I wrap it around that metal piece and then I can use my snips to snip it off. And with the tape on there, it doesn't go flying. Okay, silly safety lesson over. Now that I've got all the dies snipped apart, I'm going to put them over my stamped and embossed images, run them through my die cut machine, and now I've got a whole bunch of butterflies that need some color. So I've grabbed a nonstick craft sheet to work on to protect my white craft mat. I've got some rainbow distress ink colors that I'm going to use, and I'm going to start by lining up my butterflies on my card panel and kind of figuring out which ones I'm using, how many I actually need, and what my rainbow is going to look like. Okay, so you can see those two butterflies at the top there. Those are my practice ones. Now I think I know what I'm doing. So I've swiped my ink pads on my craft sheet and I'm using a wet paintbrush to pick up the color and paint my butterfly. Now I'm not going for anything super realistic. That's one of the fabulous things about this stamp set. It's so cute, you really can't go wrong. Just add color in whatever way makes you happy. And that is what I'm doing. I needed a relaxing afternoon craft project, and this was totally it. I had so much fun painting butterflies. I'm going to skip ahead because it took me forever, but it was so relaxing and so fun. So after all my butterfly wings were painted, then I needed to color their little bodies, and I decided to do them all the same and all gray so that it wouldn't distract from the rainbow wings. I grabbed some Copic markers. And since I'm on watercolor paper and since this isn't what I originally planned, I'm not doing anything complicated. Not really looking for anything too complicated anyway. Just doing a quick outline in a few places and then blending it with a lighter color of gray. Then I decided to grab a black pen and do some details on the wings. So I took my little fine tip black pen and I just did dots, like a whole bunch of dots, some more concentrated spots, some more spread out spots, just to kind of add a little bit of detail and interest to the wings. After that, I did pink cheeks and then a little bit of white highlights. And guys, sorry for the kind of bad angle for the coloring. I will work on that for my next video. But now let's hop along and work on the rest of the card. So this is my white card panel that all these butterflies are going to go onto, and I want to stamp a sentiment. But I want to check my sentiment, I want to test it before I commit to stamping on my project. So I've got my panel loaded in my Misty with a piece of acetate on top. I'm going to ink up my stamp and stamp onto that acetate. Now stamping on the acetate gives me a chance to check and make sure I like where I've put the stamp, that it's straight, that it's even, all of those kind of good things. This time it's not. It usually isn't the first try, guys. So I'm going to wipe off that acetate, clean off that stamp, move it, test it again, and then check if I like it the second time. Yep, I like it better this time. So I'm going to clean off that acetate, get it out of the way, ink up my stamp, and stamp again, this time onto my actual project. And I always share this tip because I always do this now, you guys. It has saved me so many times. So this is my process every time. Now that my sentiment is stamped, I'm going to lay out my butterflies again and make sure I've got them in all the right places before I start adhering them to this card panel with some foam tape. And once all the butterflies are adhered to that panel, I'm just going to grab a pair of scissors and trim off any butterflies that are hanging over the edge. I'm going to grab my favorite black pens and do a few little dots here and there just because I love them and it makes me feel like my project is complete. And when I was doing that, I noticed that some of the paint did get outside those embossed lines. So I'm using a white gel pen, almost like an eraser, and just going over any stray paint and kind of erasing it away. And here is the finished card. I just love how it turned out. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys are inspired to craft, and I hope you get time to. Have a great day and happy crafting!